All right, here we go, honors geometry. It is time to talk about the properties of kites. Kites are those items that fly in the air, but in geometry, they are quadrilaterals with the following properties, which is what makes them a kite. Exactly two pairs, so there are four sides, two pairs of consecutive and congruent sides. Two pairs of consecutive congruent sides. So AB is congruent to AD and BC is congruent to DC. One pair of opposite angles are congruent. Angle ABC is congruent to angle ADC. So one pair of opposite angles are congruent. And diagonals are perpendicular. Diagonals are perpendicular. Okay? So, with those properties in mind, let's take a look at number one. We have a kite below given. If each quadrilateral below is a kite, find the missing value. So, we've got angle A and angle C here is 85 and 43. We know that these angles, one pair of opposite angles, we know that those angles are congruent. So, let's call them both x. And so 2x plus 85 plus 43 has to equal 360 degrees since the four angles of a quadrilateral have to add up to 360. So if you solve for x there, you will get that the measure of angle B and the measure of angle D, since they are congruent, are both 116 degrees. All right. So we've got the measure of angle J and angle K. So let's take a look at, number two. I did not say we were doing number two. So let's take a look at number two, looking for the measure of angle J and the measure of angle K. So angle J is 82 degrees. One pair of opposite angles are congruent. And angle K is going to be 125 degrees, since the sum of all four of those angles needs to be 360. All right, let's dive on over to number three. So number three, we have our diagonals drawn. Remember that in a kite, the diagonals are perpendicular. So we're looking for the measure of angles of angle PTQ, which is 90 degrees. Looking also for the measure of angle PQT. Well, this is a triangle, and we know this is 90 here and 37 right here. So PQT has got to be 53 degrees. And QRT should also be 37 degrees, QRT. Keep in mind, this is an isosceles triangle here, since the consecutive sides are congruent. So if this angle is 37, this is also 37, since the base angles of an isosceles triangle are also congruent. All right, let's hop over to number five. A lot more missing information here now that we've kind of gotten through the preliminary information from 1, 2, and 3. Let's jump over to 5. A lot of information. We're looking for angle 1, angle 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And what do we already know? We already know that this angle is 65 degrees, which means we might be able to find angle 4, since we have an isosceles triangle right here, since these are congruent sides on the kite. So let's go ahead and throw angle 4 into the mix. Okay, we know that angle 3 is 90, since our diagonals are perpendicular. You don't have to find them in order, guys. All right, so if we take a look, we already know, since this is 65, we know these are 90. We can easily find angle 1 and 2, because we have 2 out of 3 angles of a triangle filled out. So 65 plus 90, subtract that from 180 to get that angle 1 is 25, and angle 2 obviously is also 25. Okay, and we know now that these are 25. All right, we can also figure out, we know that's 90. We can also figure out right here, we know this is 52 in this triangle. We know that's 90, so we can easily figure out angle 6 by subtracting the sum from 180. Angle 6 is going to be 38, which means angle 5 is also 38, since these angles are congruent. where did I go? Angle 6, angle 5. Okay, and angle 7 should also be 52 degrees because we have 38, 90, and 52, 38, 90, and 52. These are congruent angles, back to the fact that they are the base angles of an isosceles triangle. Therefore, these also must be congruent because they are. I mean, it's the same triangle. So angle 7 is also 52 degrees. So hopefully that made sense. And knowing that the diagonals are perpendicular leads me to think that we're probably going to have to work with the Pythagorean theorem to find missing sides. Spoiler alert. So if WX is 14 and WR is 8, we're looking for RZ. All right. So if WX is 14, WZ is also 14 by property of kites. The consecutive sides are congruent. And we would be using the Pythagorean theorem to find RZ. Let's call that X. WZ is our hypotenuse, so 14 squared is equal to 8 squared plus X squared. X squared is 132. Therefore, X, if you round to the nearest 10, is 11.5. So RZ is 11.5. So that concludes all of our work with quadrilaterals. And this is a great page to use as a guide for memorizing all of the properties of the different quadrilaterals that we've talked about, as well as kind of the family of the parallelograms here, how a parallelogram is either a rhombus, parallelograms are parallelograms, but a rhombus can be rhombus is a parallelogram, rectangle is a parallelogram, square is both a rhombus, a rectangle, and a parallelogram, so it kind of shows you that flow chart. Talks to you about your trapezoid, your mid-segment of your trapezoid, talks to you specifically a bit about the isosceles trapezoid, and talks to you about the kite. So this is like the best page for all of the things. After that, if you don't know these properties, you can't do any of the types of questions where you solve for X and find missing angles and find missing sides. So these properties tell you how to set up your equations and how to do everything that you need to do. So what's next? What's next is homework 8. And you are going to work through the odds of homework 8, and you are going to check your answers, self-check, to be sure that you have memorized and gotten proficient and mastered the properties of kites. Thanks for watching.